And actually, I brought up speech coach. In your elementary years, you definitely went to a speech therapist to solve a stutter you had, and this is all correlating together also. Very funny. I believe I went to a speech pathologist as a kid, too. I believe for me, I couldn't say my R's correctly. I know, I have very little recollection of it. I was living in Indonesia at the time, going to an international school there, and I think it was through the school, but I could be completely wrong. But it was always funny to me because I have an R in my name, and so it doesn't seem like the best consonant to have issues going over for sure. And I still feel like I say it wrong to this day. But the main exercise I did there was, you know, like the tongue clicks, doing that type of thing. You prep one and hold it. That was one of the exercises I had to do to just strengthen my tongue and mouth muscles. Now I'm pretty sure that's like a looks maxing thing, so stolen valor if you ask me. Speech pathologist got there first. Please and thank you. Torinski. Exactly. I wish I still knew, like, how was I saying it wrong? It's so funny to look back and just have no real idea as to, like, why I was there in the first place or what progress I made. Because I was just a dumb kid. I didn't really know what I was doing. I found it kind of fun. You know, it was almost a competition of how long could I hold that tongue click position, and it, like, became a challenge to overcome, and more, I, like, almost gamified it more than anything else. But yes, it's definitely funny to look back on and try to think, how was I doing it before? How am I doing it now even? How do any of us really speak? And is there such thing as correct speech? Not so much. There's more of a socially acceptable, or more than that, less than socially, more colloquially successful speech, if you know what I mean. If everyone gets what you're saying, then it's fine. To win, probably, since that's the classic weaker R. True, and that's definitely, like, younger. I feel toddler age, that's very prevalent. And it could have been. Maybe I'll ask my parents. Maybe they'll recognize. Yeah, if you've never been to speech therapy before, you don't know those techniques, you appreciate the efforts, and now you need to text dumb crap, need an editor when you type therapy. Fair enough. Yeah, that's the thing. They may have fixed my ability to say and pronounce the R letter, but they in no way, shape, or form addressed the inane rambling and rants that I'm capable of performing and consistently and constantly go on. So probably should have taken it up to the source on that one and tried to take care of some business, but too late now. Now I am who I am, and none of it makes much sense, but such is life. And hey, I enjoy going a little stir crazy on my own. It actually helped me ramble on and on. Also, you love me for that, so keep rambling. I sure hope so. I mean, at this stage, if you're still around, there's probably some amount of acceptable understanding between us on that topic, because I feel like most people had a problem with that, and especially my inability to consistently, like, hold on to any solid topic and a kind of tangent all over the place. That's not acceptable. You're probably already gone, which, you know, all the best. To each their own, and I wouldn't expect anyone to enjoy whatever my specific brand of incessant speech is what it is. Your issue, you had a stutter was fixed. All it took was you choosing your words carefully before you say them, which is actually definitely a life lesson for most people today. That's very true. I think that's something I've always been very proud of as well. Even though on stream I talk about how I ramble a lot, and I definitely say things without the, like, complete wherewithal of exactly, you know, all of the repercussions or insinuations or hinting that could be read out of those statements. Maybe don't have all of that under my belt, especially given the fact that generally when streaming, it's a bit of a push and pull between all the different aspects that are kind of pulling my attention. But all that to say that I, in my personal life, am definitely very cautious, or almost like too obsessed with what I say and how I say it, and making sure that I'm doing my best to try and convey things in a clear and concise way. It's something that especially I've noticed as one of my favorite book series has a magic system in it. And essentially, if you tell a lie, you weaken your ability to perform magic. And I've taken that far too much to heart, and now I enjoy trying to never lie. Even small innocuous lies. I mean, I'm a bit too much of a lover of casual sarcasm for it to be perfectly executed at all times, but I still take that general feel into when I speak, and I try not to lie as best I can, which usually ends up just having a lot of like backing up language or I guess uncertain language, which is probably not the best in a professional business setting, but at least means that I don't speak in absolutes. So Torinski never speaks in absolutes, except that time. But yeah, I definitely take a lot of that to heart to think through what I'm saying. And I think for me, part of it goes back to when I first was learning how to speak. I know the story is, and you know, it has to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, my parents, and especially my mom, are great storytellers, which generally correlates to a slight over-exaggeration of certain qualities of any given story. I think that's almost a prerequisite to being a truly good storyteller. But the story is, to go back to it, that I didn't say a word as a child until I said full sentences. And I was always a bit unsure of it. It seems like I have a little bit more potential evidence to back it up, especially having learned a bit more about specific like developmental conditions that can lead to that in childhood. And so it fits to a certain extent with how my brain works today. I definitely like to have my full thoughts. If I'm trying to say something, it makes me quite bad at communications in like an emotional, I guess, mental state, because I oftentimes will shut down a little bit because I want to really think through and like, how can I accurately describe how I'm feeling in a way that won't be misunderstood or misrepresent those feelings. And so I've kind of carried that into adulthood. So, you know, granted, that is potentially an argument in the 4 column for that overall story, but I've always liked it. It fits with who I am as a person for sure, and I've liked the idea that even as a tiny child, I was already wanting to do it right. It was not good enough to just speak words because I knew them. It had to be perfect, and it had to be full sentences or nothing. Bit of an all or nothing person, I guess. At least in that context. You were mentioning that you love me saying things. Don't worry, the entire DCSS community has my back if I'm ever worried. I appreciate that. Thank you. Like, you did like how I put that? Same thing, why wizards don't wear plate armor. You're trying to keep your personal problems to yourself. Not ask for help, even though you should ask for help. Right? Sometimes, and I would say for me personally, it's to a detrimental level, but it's definitely, it is how it is. And I've learned to live with it in one way or another. And having a wonderful supportive partner who at least has some understanding of how all that works for me personally is definitely a huge part of it as well. But you hear me? You've been watching my channel and love the commentary? But you're a wizard, Larry. No, I appreciate it. Or Terry, yeah, maybe slightly more fitting. But no, thank you. I do appreciate it. And we'll see. Of course, I'm, if nothing else, not the most consistent of folks, so may or may not continue to ramble until the end of time itself, because there's always the potential that I will just have one of those days where it's not really floating my boat and I'm unable to really put those thoughts, you know, connect those dots, as it were. And that's just how it do be sometime at the end of it all. But okay, we finally got the condenser vein. There we go. I've thought too much now about my ability slash inability to speak, and now it's gonna permeate throughout the rest of the stream here as I find myself unable to express anything and everything. You see my progress and love my streams every Sunday? Time to slay the dungeon. Oh, we'll do our best, of course. Yeah, I don't even really want to go back. I'm like thinking back to my very first stream, so it would have been Hades, I think was the first game I ever streamed. I believe it was very much on a whim. It was my brother telling me one day, hey, you should try out this streaming thing. Why don't you do it right now? Just do it. What? Just do it. Try it. And I did. And I'm sure it was a little bit of an incoherent mess, especially since I was not at all familiar with any of the technologies involved. So that adds another interesting inflection of difficulty onto the entire situation. But hey, we figured it out to a certain degree, as much as I'm able to figure out anything. Oh, you, my friend. Wand of Light. Light, Wand of Sight. Lead us safely our way tonight. Fantastic. Well, more Wand of Light charges is actually quite wonderful. More than happy with that. We also have a couple of brand weapon scrolls that I'm not actually sure where we'll end up putting those. I guess, again, if we do end up going back to that double sword and potentially pivoting that direction for the later sections of the run, then that could be an avenue that we explore. We shall have to see. You're just like trying to go to a Bailey and you don't have any sources of light, but those orcs are pissed off at you. What do? It's either the best or the worst case scenario for any character, for sure. Because oftentimes you can either be at the behest of all those orcs and you're just taking pot shots and pokes from across the map the entire time, or, as is often the case for me, just due to sheer dumb luck, you end up being able to just use and abuse the setups there to our own ends and desires. Sometimes it just works. Hello, my one-eyed friend. Goodbye. Ooh, we got ourselves a lovely shop here as well. Is there anything really we want? I mean, I do want to ID haste, almost definitely. Another heal wounds. Don't mind if I do. I mean, should maybe save up money in case we find some other stuff that I want, but better to use it than lose it, so let's just spend a buttload of cash. Right here and now. Okay, I was worried that that would have a bunch of manuals that I have desperate need of, but we're actually looking okay on that front as well here. And so now that we have the condenser vein, I'm feeling a bit better about potentially just cranking that Evo up to 11. Figuratively, of course. 20 on a more literal sense. And then what else do we want here? Again, I'm not convinced that we'll need to switch to long blades, especially with that Rapier of Speed that is generally sufficient for a 3-rune game, so I'm tempted to let Sleeping Dogs lie there and potentially pivot into something else. I mean, more defenses could be nice. Eventually, we'll probably want to swap into a slightly heavier armor set as well, especially once stealth starts, unfortunately, letting us down a bit more, which I'm kind of assuming is going to be the case, but I think time will tell that that is generally the expectation for any DCSS run, as you get into the later stages at the very least. What do? Well, I guess I'll put on dodging for now. For lack of a better plan, for lack of a better idea, at this time and place, that sounds pretty good to me. Scrolls of Noise will drop for the moment here. Oh my gosh, and we did get a backstab there, so you're saying it can still be done. There's still a chance. I should probably be doing a little bit more legwork to make sure that we're popping off with the rampage as often as we possibly can. It is nice to get the free hits out of that, so anytime we can take advantage of it, more than happy to do so. Okay, this son of a gun could hit much harder than I would like, but fortunately, backstab at least did enough damage to make the encounter tenable overall. And not too shabby. Okay, definitely get the Aquamancer. Elemental is just a bonus treat. Oh my gosh. And that was wonderful. Again, if I could consistently get stabbers going, and maybe I can, and I just haven't tried it often enough, because that's definitely a fairly fair assessment, seeing as how I almost never try stabbing characters. But if I could successfully get them at least to this stage, I think I would have a lot of fun with them, because there's something very satisfying. It's that type of brain umami that just hits the spot, and I like about trying to puzzle out like the optimal stab path to get to everyone, especially with Rampage. I think the Rampage is the big piece of the puzzle there. But is there anything here for me? I mean, if this ringmail wasn't willpower minus, it would be almost an instant grab. Still could be pretty solid. I mean, ringmail of elemental resistance with a bit of slain sprinkle on top doesn't seem too horrible. And these boots, unless I find better boots at some point, just add them all to the shopping list. Stealth plus on that ring, is that any good? The stealth plus is pretty decent. I mean, we still have a little bit, an itty bit of ceiling to go up here. Again, I think that short term it's pretty sweet. It allows us to do those, you know, those fun little puzzle combos as we were just mentioning. But unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of long-term benefit, because eventually stealth just isn't going to cut it, and we're going to be dealing with large swaths of enemies more often than not. So in theory, yes, the stealth thing is good from my understanding. Again, I'm no expert. I'm not exactly well versed enough on the stealth side of things to have great commentary on the efficacy of it, I guess is what it comes down to. But that's definitely my understanding, based on my limited experience. And I'm just hoping at this point I don't run into Krakens. Again, it's so great to have flight in shoals. It's such a game changer and will add a lot of survivability to you. But if you're lazy like me, especially if you just use Auto Explorer constantly, then you will find yourself in troubled waters more often than not, as you come face to face with a many-tentacled buddy old pal in a less than survival conducive scenario, shall we say. And not too shabby. Okay, Windrake being awake is not the end of the world. Even if we don't get a complete sneak attack, like they're asleep, even wandering is good enough for me. Oh yeah, brother. Not too shabby whatsoever. In fact, this is going way better than I thought it would. Am I just getting stupidly lucky? Or have I secretly been ignoring the one build style that is highly conducive to my playstyle? And I should have had sneaky stabbers my entire life here. The Great Players series would have been done in exactly 27 runs if I just followed this one simple rule. Doctors hate me for it, and all that good stuff. Well, let's take you out of there, because I don't want to wake. You son of a gun. We woke our poor satyr buddy. So rude of us. Here, all anyone wants is a good night's sleep, especially the constant wave crashing. I mean, if you're a white noise kind of sleeper, then more power to you, and I'm sure it's great down here in Shoals. But for all we know, that satyr was a bit of a light sleeper and had some issues with the constant bash and crash of the waves down here. And it was honestly pretty messed up for us to wake them up from their slumber without taking due consideration of that simple fact. Just something to think about next time. Okay. Well, that time the rampage, positive note, it killed the Javelineer hella fast. Perfect job. 10 out of 10. The less than stellar news, the flip side of that, is that unfortunately, kind of put us out of position. I'm going to condenser vein, but I'm also concerned about the condenser vein because unfortunately, our own smoke kind of gets in the way of that, I feel. But hey, we still got a few clouds, and in fact, it's definitely looking like it's going to be enough clouds to solve all of life's problems for us here. Okay, do you want? Yeah. Again, ships in the night. If you want to go that way, I go this way. More than happy to work that out. Well, let's hide again. I didn't even notice we had a frozen kraken friend. Excuse me, pardon me. Again, very rude of me, but truly meant nothing by it, buddy old pal. Okay, this is a not too dangerous place to deal with this encounter. Just play it a little bit on the safe side. Make sure we don't get grabbed by too many of our tentacled friends there. +5 Vampiric Trident. Well, if I wasn't already so deep into the stealth strats here, I would definitely have a bit of a tempting ring to it for sure. I mean, we still could potentially transition. In fact, that would almost be potentially better than trying to transition into long blades without having a very sure idea of what that would look like. But I don't think it will be something we really worry too much about for the moment here. And I guess we got our rune, so we're actually pretty happy overall. Is there anything I can drop? Because I definitely want to free up some space. Poison darts have probably fallen off by this stage. These as well to a certain extent. But I'm tempted to keep them around. And I guess round to your earlier question, the gloves and the cloak we're wearing actually do the same thing as that ring as well. So we were already leveraging that exact ego to a pretty decent outcome, if I do say so myself, seeing as how things were going oddly smooth in Shoals. Shoals is usually where I expect some disaster to strike and for some things to hit the wall, as it were, but did not seem to be the case this time. And actually, I was tempted to leave because that's another strategy that we're hoping to explore a little bit further on this run, is running and gunning, taking what we want, and then just getting the heck out of dodge, because why the heck should we risk life and limb if it's completely unnecessary? Except, sometimes, you find something like that. Now we can drop the dex and the fire resistance ring, because this just does both. The Ring of the Madman? Nay. An artifact has never been so misrepresented by its nomenclature. Except, I guess, maybe if you take it the other way, take a madman not to wear this ring, then maybe, just maybe, they know what they're talking about. We do have one more little vault here. So again, despite my better judgment, I think we will check it out and see if there's any little treasures for an enterprising adventurer like myself. I mean, an artifact amulet probably fits the bill. We'll see what it has in store for us. Strength +9 is interesting on a little guy like Scrock here. But do I care much? Faith? I mean, I'm not exactly burning through piety at an astounding rate here by any stretch. I'm also not really using the acrobat effect very much. I guess I am using the flight from our current amulet, so maybe not the best argument I could make. Also, int -5, bringing us down to 3 intelligence. That's a short-term trap that will almost definitely lead to us going brainless at some point. And we, again, already do that enough in my real life. I don't need to start simulating it in the video game as well. So So maybe best for now that we better not. But okie dokie. How are we sitting here? I mean, I'm pretty much at the end of the time I have free this evening. Oh, I also need to check in on a couple messages here, just make sure there's nothing too critical. But all that was just to say that, yeah, we're nearing the end of time for the evening here, so we could potentially start off in Spider and see how we fare. I'm slightly concerned for Spider. I think we'll get overwhelmed quite easily unless we were onto something and it turns out the secret was stealth the entire time. Because it definitely was in shoals. We also did get pretty lucky. I mean, there wasn't a single unique down here. As well as, I think, 2 Javelineers the entire time. So not a bad calculus when it comes to our continued survival. But maybe start off Spider, see if we can't get to that 2 rune mark that I like to end off streams. Let us do so, shall we? We have a sack of spiders and we have Condenser Vein. Condenser Vein is back online as well, fully recharged, which is lovely. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Totally worth it to step in the spider's web. It adds a new complexity to the stabber game here, because now we know that if we rampage into a web, it will catch us.